G'day everyone, Asian Day here. We're going to do the in-depth review of this Dell XPS 13. Now this is the 9310 model and it is a 13-inch ultra portable lightweight laptop. Now I will be going through the temperatures as well, fan noise, and look at the display and the speakers and also the other features of this computer as well. Now I also will be putting timestamps along this video so you can actually skip to the different sections or chapters that you may be interested in, just to help you guys out. Now first off, what this computer can be configured with. Now with the processor wise, it is housing the Intel Evo. Now Intel Evo is not really a processor, I'm sorry to say. It's actually a certification from Intel. What the computer has to meet certain requirements for Intel to give it the stamp of approval of Intel Evo. And the first one is its processor. It has to house 11th gen Intel core, now which is what this one does house. Now with processor wise, this can be configured with an i3, which is 2 cores, or an i5, which is 4 cores, or an i7, which is 4 cores. As for RAM wise, it can go up to a maximum capacity of 32 gigs. Now the RAM is soldered to the system board, so you need to select carefully when purchasing this computer because you can't upgrade the RAM later on. Now as for storage wise, it has one slot of M.2. As for the graphics wise, it uses the Intel integrated graphics. Now this being the 11th gen, it actually has a new one which is called RSXE, and it's actually quite decent, and you'll see that in the performance scores later on. Of course, it's got Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1, which is also one of the other parts of the certifications for Intel Evo. As for display wise, there are 3 options. Now 2 of the options is full HD. There is a touch version and there is also a non-touch version, and both of them rated at 500 nits to brightness. And then there's the 3rd option, which is the Ultra HD option, which has touch and is also rated at 500 nits of brightness. Now this one I've got here is the full HD touch version here, and it is of course rated at 500 nits of brightness, which we'll taste it a little bit later on. But as you can see, it is a 16:10 ratio, which is really nice. I do love this new 16:10. You actually get more real estate, and even in the bottom, just having the taskbar or start bar there is just fantastic because that takes a little bit of real estate and that leaves you a little bit more real estate to do other stuff. So it's great. It's just gorgeous, I've got to say, this screen. Now the actual it is a glossy look to it on all 3 of them, and as you can see, it's got this infinity edge there, and there is not much of a bezel at all, which is beautiful, I gotta say. It's got one of the nicest display screens out there. Let's have a look at the ports. Starting on the right hand side of the computer, we've got the headphone audio combo jack, and then we've got a Thunderbolt 3 port, and then we've got the Thunderbolt 4 port, and that is USB type C port. And looking on the left hand side of the computer, we've got another Thunderbolt 4 port, which of course is USB type C, and then we've got a micro SD card reader. Dell has included a USB-C to USB type A, which is fantastic they've done that, because quite simply we still have need of USB type A ports. The XPS 13 does house a 720p webcam and also infrared at the top of the display. It's very small, but there is enough room for a 720p webcam. I do wish it had a 1080p webcam in 2020, but let's hope in 2021 that they actually upgrade that lower blade, because quite simply we're doing a lot more video conferencing and doing a lot more content creation as well these days, especially with this COVID situation. So hopefully they'll listen to us and upgrade it later on, but at the moment it is a 720p webcam. This is a recording from the 720p webcam, and this is the audio and video unedited, so you can see what it looks like. Now I've actually got 2 types of lights currently turned on. I've got one of my studio lights turned on, which is shining on me at the moment, and also got the downlights that's currently in this room. And I'm going to actually turn off my studio light off so you can see what it looks like. Hopefully see that kind of adjust there. And I've actually got 2 downlights on the front of me and 2 downlights on the behind me as well. Now the 2 lights in front of me, it's quite a fair bit away, so it is quite dark. So this is probably more darker than what you would have in an office environment. So I'd definitely love to hear what you thought of the audio and video, and I'll actually just turn off my studio light just to see, so you can see what it looks like again. So of course with better lighting, of course you get better pictures as well. There are 4 speakers on the bottom side of the XPS 13, and when I tested out the maximum volume of the speakers, it managed to peak at 80.6 decibels. So it's actually quite loud, I've got to say. So you will not be definitely struggling if you're going to a cafe to do a presentation. You'll definitely not be struggling with this at all. And as for the sound quality, these sound good, I've got to admit. They have good amount of bass for sure, and has some very good balance between the bass, mids and highs. And also as for the acoustics, it is actually quite nice acoustics as well. So definitely the speakers on the XPS 13 is, gotta say, fantastic as well. And so, which is unusual for a lot of my business laptops. So this is got very good speakers I can be proud of as well. The Dell XPS 13 comes with a 45 watt power adapter. Now this power adapter is so small. It's probably the smallest power adapter I've handled for a laptop. It is crazy small. It's the same size as this DA200 adapter I've got, which does the Ethernet, USB and HDMI and VGA. So that's actually the same size. That's crazy that this is that small for the power adapter. So definitely I love this power adapter that included with the XPS 13. As for the battery wise, it houses a 52 watt hour battery, and of course it supports rapid charge, which is also one of the requirements for Intel Evo certification. So you can actually charge this from 0 to 80% in 1 hour's time, and it takes around about 2 hours to actually charge the battery to 100% after that. I did perform the battery life test for this computer here, and with my battery life test I do have a consistent workload all along the whole entire time. Now I did test it in the 4 different modes. So in best performance mode it managed to get 2 hours, which is really decent, I've got to admit. And in better performance mode it managed to get a little bit better, which is 2 hours and 10 minutes. And in better battery life mode it managed to get 3 hours and 20 minutes. And in battery saving mode it managed to get 5 hours. Now I did perform a medium mode, and that is when the computer is connected to Wi-Fi with the screen brightness and the speaker volume set to 50%, and I had this computer pretty much stream YouTube the whole entire time, and it managed to get 9 hours and 30 minutes. So that's what you kind of expect, and you should actually get better numbers than what I did because I've got a consistent workload all the whole entire time. So the weight of the XPS 139310 is 1.27 kilos. Add in the 45 watt power adapter, becomes 1.5 kilos, and also add in the USB-C to USB-A adapter, you get a total of 1.51 kilos, which is what you're going to put on your backpack or what you'll be carrying around with you. When I tested out the temperatures and fan noise of this computer, when I put this computer on load, I found most of the heat is located near the center of the keyboard, specifically where the Y key is. And that's unsurprising because that's where the processor lives underneath. And the other area that gets heated up quite a lot is around the middle top of the keyboard, and it's around about where the F7 key is, and again, unsurprising because that's where the exhaust vent is. Now, when I took all my measurements, my ambient temperatures was 23 degrees Celsius. Now, of course, I did my base measurement when the computer was on idle. Hottest area of the keyboard measured in at 48 degrees Celsius, so quite hot. And the fan noise was 31 decibels, so pretty much dead quiet. And then I put the computer on 20% load, so that's what you expect for office productivity work, as well as streaming videos and surfing the web sort of type of tasks. And the hottest area of the keyboard measured in at 52.5 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise hit a maximum of 32 decibels, so still very quiet there. And then I'll put the computer on 50% load, and the hottest area of the keyboard measured in at 53.5 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise hit a maximum of 34 decibels, so it spins up a little bit. And then I'll put the computer on 100% load, and the hottest area of the keyboard measured in at 53 degrees Celsius, and as for the fan noise, hit a maximum of 35 decibels. I also measured the back cover, the bottom of the computer, and the hottest area of the bottom measured in at 48 degrees Celsius, and of course the fan noise was 35 decibels. So you can see this computer runs quite hot, and unfortunately this is something to do with being so thin. It can't really expel that air out, especially when the exhaust is actually only about that wide. So it's got a very small exhaust vent, and I think it needs to actually bring the actual fan noise just a little bit higher so we can actually get some of the exhaust out. I think we should be able to be okay with a little bit of fan noise for a little bit of performance gain. That will definitely be nice if Dell can actually change that. Even with the BIOS update, it'd be fantastic with that. But I've got to admit, where the palm rest is, you don't feel that at all. It actually is quite cold, so you can actually put and work on this computer, start typing. You want to even though it is hot in the middle where the keyboard is, but as you're typing, you're only touching the keys for a very split second, so you actually don't really feel it that much. So you can still continue working and typing on this computer while this computer is running on load in the background. So it is quite good that you still can actually type. So that's amazing that the palm rest, you actually don't feel that, and especially the key, space key as well too. So you actually don't feel that at all. So I've got to admit, that is a fantastic design in terms of having all the heat is actually down at the top of the keyboard where you really don't feel it. And as for putting it in your lap, don't put this on your lap for sure. It is hot, and I really don't advise any computer really putting your lap at all. Have some sort of table, or actually have some sort of like barrier between you and the computer, because these things do get heated up a fair bit. Testing out the processor stability performance, as well as if there's any thermal throttling. Now this XPS 13 is configured with an i7 1165 G7 processor with a base clock speed of 2.8 GHz. Now this computer's been running on load for both the processor, RAM and hard drive for just over 30 minutes now. And we're just looking at this speed here of the processor, and it runs on average anywhere between 2 GHz to about 2.4 GHz. So that's actually below the 2.8 GHz base clock speeds, which means this does have thermal throttling involved. As for turbo throttling, we don't need to even check for that, because that's way below even the base clock speed here. So that's kind of what you'll be expecting. So this needs a lot more better in cooling wise. Let's test out the XPS 13 to see how long before it gets to thermal throttling on the processor. I'm just going to start processing now. I've got a stopwatch going, as you can see. And when that speed here goes below 2.8 gigahertz, I'll probably give it a little bit more than just 2.8, probably about 2.7. And if it just kind of maintains the 2.7 a little bit or below, I'll then stop the clock and see how long it's able to maintain these clock speeds for before it starts getting thermal throttled here. So I'm just going to touch my phone, sorry, because it does like to go to sleep quite often. And we're already hit that 2.7 very quickly, 2.6, and I don't just touch that very quickly. Now it's around about 2.3 gigahertz, 3 gigahertz, 2.7, 2.9, 2.6, 2.8, 2.6, and starting very soon. It's going to stick with that 2.7, 2.9. I'm still letting it run a little bit just to let you see what's the performance for this at the moment. 2.5, 2 points. Yeah, here we go. That's pretty much all we can do. After that, it's just hitting pretty low there. So about a minute mark is what you're looking for the thermal throttling. So it is getting quite severely thermal throttle very quickly. Now as for the keyboard, it houses this new keyboard on there, and it's actually quite nice, I've got to say. It's just like the precisions that I've actually done before, and it's actually got quite wide on each keys, individual keys. It's got a very smooth texture to each keys as well. It's got a bit of tactile feel to it. There's a bit of key travel there, which is really nice. It's got a bit of a softer feel to the keys. It's still maintaining tactile feel to it as well, and it's got a nice little narrow spacing between each keys, and then also it's got the power button located on the top right hand corner, so your delete key is indented in. There also is the optional fingerprint reader that's built into the power button as well, and it is backlit, which is really nice. And I've got to say, they've still got a nice trackpad, and this is a gorgeous feel to the trackpad. It's got a very glass feel to it, just like the Macs. Very nice. And as for the size, it's actually really nice, especially for this 13-inch. With the 15-inch, I do have the XPS 15-inch, and that's extremely big, and I just don't like that too big. But this one, they did increase it, and I gotta say, it's a perfect size, especially when you actually put your palm rest on and you're not really putting your palm on the trackpad. Is quite nice, and you actually got plenty of nice good tactile feel to actually start to do some typing here. And also, as for the palm rest, I've got some small hands, but even then it's still very nice to actually put it down, and I actually don't have it cutting along my wrist there, so definitely nice palm rest there. And as for the texture of the palm rest, this one here has that carbon fiber feel to it. It's actually quite nice. And as for the build construction of this computer, it is aluminum all around. It's got this nice, very nice, beautiful brush aluminum all the way from the side, and it's actually got quite, yeah, it's quite stiff here, I've got to admit. Very nice build quality there, so it's definitely going to last for a amount of time. And of course you can see this has a very nice, beautiful look to the whole entire computer itself as well. Now as for the fingerprint, the one finger test, you can pretty much see if one finger will easily lift it all through. Probably didn't get stuck, but I'm just giving you a nice little wiggle, but you can pretty much see. And pretty much that as far as it goes. And it pretty much is probably, what would you say, 140 degrees. I always probably think that it would be 140 degrees or 130 degrees, something like that. But you can see what it can do for, that's as far as it can go. Now, and as for, I know people have asked me about if this hinge will unlock itself when you're actually walking or holding it, and I can quite happily say no, it does not. It actually clamps quite nicely there. So, and still maintaining that one finger easy lift, I've got to say. So brilliant system on the hinge system here. I did perform the benchmarks for this particular XPS 13. Now this one is configured with an i7 1165 G7 processor with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gig hard drive. And I'll put up the pass mark score: Citybench R15 and R20, 3D Mark, PC Mark 10, Geekbench, Crystal Disk Mark, and Spec View Pref. I've got to make a mention of the integrated graphics of the RSXE, and I've got to must admit that they've definitely made a bit of a jump from the previous generation. It's actually nearly double the performance of the previous generation. Not yet, but nearly double the performance. And I've got to admit, with the XPS 13 specifically, I have had play with another 11th gen Intel core, and it does perform quite better. So I've got to say, with the cooling of this XPS 13 could be a little bit better, even spinning the fan back it, but this is a much thinner computer than the other one I've tested out. Measuring the color gamut coverage of the full HD touch display, it measured in at 96% sRGB coverage and 67.1% Adobe RGB coverage and 69% DCI P3 coverage. I also tested out the display to see if it uses PWM, and I'm happy to say the display for full HD touch does not use PWM. The built-in display has now been color calibrated using the X-Rite i1 display tool. So we're just going to see if there is any color shift after the calibration of this display. So this is what it looks like out of factory, and this is what it looks like after calibration. So I can definitely see it's cooled down a lot more, and there might actually be a little bit more magenta as well too. So out of factory, after calibration, and I will just bring it to another one here, which is down to color, just to make things easier. So out of factory, after calibration, out of factory, and I'll just do Pascal as well. Out of factory, after calibration, out of factory, after calibration. Definitely has warmed a lot more. And we'll also do black and white as well, just do mid-tone black and white so we can see. So out of factory, after calibration, out of factory, after calibration. The XPS 13 9310 has a very good displays, good keyboard, fantastic trackpad. I really like that. Very good chassis as well, and it does suffer a little bit of thermal from the actual thinness there, but if you're actually not really looking at performance over a very long period of time, this is a great laptop to have, and I can easily quite recommend it. But if you are looking to actually have some performance, or doing a lot of encoding, or even doing a lot of number crunching for a long extended period of time, I would definitely be looking at another laptop than this one here, quite simply because it's been so thin. That's all they really can do. We'll have to make more leaps and bounds, but they've done a fairly good job here, and it's actually quite a good performer if you're just doing burst speed applications there, and for which is most what you should see for this computer here. But definitely, I do like this computer. It has a very nice professional look to this computer as well. So definitely something I could recommend easily for someone that definitely gone to board meetings, or if you're just traveling around with, for sure. Now, if you find this video informative or enjoyed it, or even just to support my channel, smack that like button for me. And if you haven't done already, subscribe to my channel by hitting that subscribe button bottom hand screen. I do try to upload a new video every week. And just remember, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. I'll see you next video.